The illusion of arriving. If you woke up this morning, stared up at the familiar ceiling of your bedroom, and felt a sudden, heavy thought form in the back of your mind, I just don't want to be in this world anymore. I want you to stop whatever you are doing, take a slow, deep breath, and listen very closely to what I am about to tell you. You do not want to hurt yourself. You do not want to disappear forever. You are simply tired. You are exhausted from forcing a smile for people who don't truly see you. You are drained from a relentless competition that has no finish line. And deep down, in a quiet place you rarely talk about, you feel that everything you have spent your entire life chasing is incredibly empty. This profound feeling of being bored of the world is not a mental disorder. It is not a flaw in your character, a weakness, or something you need to feel guilty about. In fact, it is one of the oldest, most brilliant psychological defense mechanisms in human history. And more importantly, it is the very first step toward true awakening. For thousands of years, human beings have been biologically and culturally programmed to chase a mirage called happiness. We are taught from childhood that if we can just secure a prestigious job, buy a bigger house, drive a luxury car, or find the picture-perfect partner, we will finally be able to plug the aching black hole in our chests. But in the original records of the Buddha's teachings, known as the Buddhavacana, he spoke of a psychological state that runs much deeper than fleeting happiness. He called it nibbida*, a word that translates directly to disenchantment or intellectual weariness. This is not the weariness of clinical depression, despair, or bitter anger at the world. It is an intellectual awakening. It is the profound state that occurs when a human being finally grows up, experiences enough of the world's games, and sees right through the superficial shell. It is the realization that there is absolutely nothing in this physical world capable of giving us a permanent, flawless sense of peace. To understand exactly how this illusion traps us, imagine the life of a man named David. David is a 35-year-old senior software engineer living in Silicon Valley. For 10 solid years, he worked grueling 14-hour days, sacrificing his sleep, his health, and his relationships to grasp the life that every magazine cover told him was perfect. Then, one day, all his sacrifices paid off. He was promoted to the highest executive level, secured a massive 6-figure salary, and finally bought the exact luxury sports car he had pinned to his bedroom wall since he was a little boy. That evening, David drove his pristine, brand new car home. He pulled into the garage of his massive, dead-silent mansion. He turned off the engine, sat perfectly still behind the steering wheel, inhaled the scent of expensive leather, and suddenly, tears began streaming down his face. David wasn't crying tears of joy. He was crying out of sheer terror and profound isolation. Sitting in the driver's seat of his dream car, David discovered the most brutal truth of human existence. After spending his entire life bleeding and sweating to climb to the very peak of the mountain, he found absolutely nothing at the top. There was no grand prize of inner peace waiting for him. There was only a cold wind and a vast, echoing emptiness. The world that once excited him and fueled his ambition had suddenly become a dull, colorless, and utterly meaningless place. Through the lens of modern neuroscience and behavioral psychology, what was crushing David is a well-documented phenomenon known as the hedonic treadmill. Our brains are driven by a miraculous chemical called dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire, craving, and pursuit. We often mistakenly believe that dopamine is the happiness chemical, but modern research has proven otherwise. Dopamine does not peak when we acquire something. It floods our nervous system when we are in the pursuit of something. The very second we finally possess the object of our desire, our dopamine levels spike for a brief, fleeting moment, only to violently crash back down to their baseline. This leaves us facing the biological equivalent of withdrawal. To feel alive again, we are forced to keep chasing bigger, harder, and more expensive goals, endlessly. When you sprint on this invisible treadmill for decades, your brain and your soul become deeply fatigued. You develop a literal tolerance to joy. This biological burnout is what creates that echoing voice in your head whispering, "There is nothing interesting left in this world." What modern science is just now mapping out in laboratories aligns flawlessly with the natural laws the Buddha explained over 2 millennia ago. The Buddha stated that the core reason we suffer, and the reason we feel such profound world weariness, is because we anchor our identities to sankhara, things that are constructed, conditioned, and entirely fabricated. Everything in the physical and social world, be it wealth, reputation, or even human affection, falls strictly under 3 universal laws: anicca, impermanence; dukkha, the suffering of being unable to maintain its state, inevitably decaying; and anatta, non-self, meaning it is ultimately outside of our control. The Buddha described the 8 worldly winds, the polar opposites that blow through every human life: gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. These 8 winds strike everyone equally and without mercy, whether you are a billionaire sitting in a penthouse or a beggar on the street. If you are exhausted by the world because you find that nothing in it goes your way, the Buddha would not pity you. He would congratulate you, because you are finally seeing the truth. He taught, all conditioned things are impermanent, unsteady, and cannot be relied upon. Just this is enough to become disenchanted with all conditioned things, enough to let go of desire, enough to be liberated. Yet, modern society operates in the exact opposite direction. The machinery of capitalism screams at us every second of the day through our glowing smartphone screens. Asterisk, you are not good enough. You are not beautiful enough. You are not rich enough. Until you buy this product. Asterisk, we are trapped in a tragicomedy where we spend money we don't even have, to buy things we don't actually want, just to project a fabricated image to impress people we don't even care about on the internet. We scroll aimlessly through endless social media feeds, desperately looking for a cure to the emptiness in our minds, willfully ignoring the fact that those very applications are the architects of that emptiness. It is a futile effort, like a fool trying to put out a roaring house fire by throwing buckets of gasoline onto the flames. Therefore, if today you feel entirely consumed by world weariness, I ask you to make a radical shift in your perspective. Transform your bitter, despairing exhaustion into a profound, intellectual disenchantment. Your life protocol from this exact second forward is this: stop expecting the world to be the way you want it to be. Absolutely stop. When you face a crashing economy, a fractured society, or manipulative people looking to exploit you, take a deliberate step back. View these events not as personal attacks, but as forces of nature. It is simply the mechanics of a world that is inherently unstable. It is no different than the weather. You cannot command a thunderstorm to stop, nor can you order the sun to shine. When you accept from the very bottom of your heart that the world is just the way it is, that the world is perpetually flawed and broken, you will stop demanding perfection from it. And the moment your expectations drop to zero, the crushing suffering you carry will reset to zero alongside it. Tonight, when the house is quiet, look out your window at the chaotic city lights and the gridlocked traffic. Realize that you no longer need to run on a treadmill that has no finish line. Your feeling of being bored of the world is not a curse. It is a priceless, blaring warning siren from the universe, telling you that it is finally time to stop looking outward for meaning. It is time to begin the greatest journey of a human lifetime, the journey back to the quietest sanctuary in existence, the one inside your own mind. Chapter 2: The Sanctuary in a Hyper-Accelerated World. Take a guess. How many times a day do we, as digital-age humans, tap, swipe, and click the glass screens of our smartphones? Recent data analytics show that the average person touches their phone about 2,600 times a day. If you consider yourself a heavy user, that number easily skyrockets past 5,400 times. We reach out and touch a cold, lifeless piece of glass thousands of times a day just to update ourselves on the chaotic stories of the rest of the world. But the painful question we must ask ourselves is this: in a single 24-hour period, how many times do we check in with our own feelings and touch our own breath? In an era where the world spins at a dizzying, nauseating pace, where catastrophic news hits us from all directions like a hurricane, and everything around us feels like a high-stakes emergency, finding inner peace seems like a completely impossible mission. But believe it or not, during the Buddha's time over 2,500 years ago, people also faced unimaginable chaos, plagues, famine, loss, and brutal, bloody wars for power. Yet, the Buddha did not teach his followers to run away from their reality by hiding in deep forest caves, nor did he tell them to blindly pray for miracles from unseen deities in the sky. He taught them the simplest, yet most indestructible principle of all: to rely entirely on oneself and the Dharma. He taught them how to construct the ultimate, impenetrable bunker inside their own minds, a sanctuary that no economy, no politician, and no crisis could ever tear down. The story of Elena paints a vivid, modern picture of this exact chaos. Elena was a highly successful influencer living in Los Angeles. Her life on camera was a curated masterpiece of luxury vacations, bright, flawless smiles, and a picture-perfect lifestyle. But behind the glowing ring light of her studio, she was a woman whose mind was shattering into a million pieces. Elena suffered from a severe, paralyzing addiction to reading her own comment sections. Every time a faceless, anonymous account insulted her, criticized her body, or brutally judged her life choices, her heart would pound so violently she felt it might break her ribs. Her hands would turn icy cold and tremble. Her breathing became shallow and erratic, and she would spiral, playing those toxic words on a loop in her head for days on end. She desperately tried to escape this brutal psychological reality by keeping herself as distracted as humanly possible. She doom-scrolled for hours on end, binge-watched true crime documentaries to numb her thoughts, drank wine until she finally passed out, and stress-shopped online at 3 in the morning. But those coping mechanisms were nothing more than a cheap painkiller that wears off rapidly. The moment she opened her eyes the next morning, the chaos in her head was still blaring, like a deafening fire alarm that no one ever bothered to turn off. What was happening to the physical architecture of Elena's brain is the perfect, intended product of what technologists call the attention economy. Global tech giants did not create these platforms by accident. They hired top-tier software engineers and behavioral psychologists to design algorithms that function exactly like casino slot machines, meticulously engineered to hijack human focus. They understand our biological vulnerabilities perfectly. Negative emotions, outrage, and primal fear grab our attention and drive engagement 3 times more effectively than joy or contentment. When we consume bad news, public outrage, or toxic internet comments, our autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic branch responsible for our fight-or-flight survival mechanism, kicks into maximum overdrive. The human body is literally tricked into believing you are being hunted by a predator in the wild. It signals the adrenal glands to continuously pump cortisol, the primary stress hormone, directly into your bloodstream. This chemical flood leaves you hypervigilant, paranoid, and intensely anxious. And this is the exact scientific reason why you feel so incredibly drained, utterly devoid of energy, and sick of the world, even if you haven't moved a single muscle off your living room couch all day. The Buddhavacana explained the mechanics of this mental hijacking with brilliant, root-level simplicity. The Buddha compared our 6 sense bases, our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, to 6 wild animals. Imagine tying a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey all together with a single rope. Each animal operates purely on its own primal instinct, constantly violently yanking the rope toward the habitat and food it prefers. The eye desperately wants to see beautiful, stimulating images. The ear wants to hear sweet, flattering sounds. And the mind wants to run wild, fabricating entertaining futures or digging up traumatic past anxieties. If we let these 6 wild animals pull against each other without a heavy anchor to ground them, our mind will be dragged relentlessly through a brutal spectrum of emotions until it is bruised, battered, and entirely exhausted. So, what is the anchor the Buddha provided to stop this agonizing tug-of-war? It is anapanasati, the profound mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. He taught a crucial master key for this practice, Nandikakaya, which translates to the destruction of delight, or instantly letting go of mental attachment. Nandi is that sticky state where our mind gets hooked, obsessed, or overly entertained by an emotion, whether it is a daydream or a nightmare. The exact moment we become self-aware that we are spiraling into negative thoughts, agonizing over work emails, or fabricating a massive drama in our heads, we must drop the Nandi. We must cut off that thought ruthlessly and instantaneously, as fast as a drop of water evaporating the second it hits a red-hot iron pan, or as quickly as the blink of an eye. You drop the story, and you pull all your awareness back, anchoring it entirely to your breath. In that split second, you flip the switch and sever the circuit of your own suffering. Think about how absurd and contradictory our modern priorities are. We willingly hand over hundreds of dollars a month for gym memberships, spending hours lifting heavy iron just to build physical endurance. We stand in ridiculously long lines to buy $8 cups of coffee just to artificially stimulate our brains. Yet, we boldly claim we just don't have the time, and absolutely refuse to dedicate just 5 free minutes a day to train the muscle of mindfulness. And that muscle is the only shield that will ever truly protect our souls from the crushing madness of this world. So, your life protocol for this chapter is simple. Build a portable sanctuary. From now on, whenever the outside world gets too loud, when political news makes your blood boil, when a boss sends an aggressive, unfair email, or when comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel on social media makes you feel worthless, do not react. Do not type a single retaliatory word on your keyboard. Freeze. Close your eyes slowly. Bring 100% of your focus to the tip of your nose, or the rising and falling of your chest. Feel the cool air flowing in, and the warm air flowing out. Do this for just 3 deep, deliberate breaths. The moment an anxious feeling or your inner critic's voice pops up to interrupt that silence, immediately drop it. Flick it away like you would a bothersome fly buzzing around your face. Do not investigate the story it's trying to tell you. Do not argue with it. Just drop it, and anchor your mind fiercely back to the breath. This seemingly simple, quiet act sends a direct, powerful biological signal to your deep brain saying, "We are safe right now," instantly shutting off the toxic flood of stress hormones in your body. Your breath is the only ancient, loyal friend that has been by your side since the very first second you opened your eyes as an infant, and it will be the exact last friend to stay with you in the final second you leave this world. It is a massive, heavy anchor that will keep you grounded, preventing the violent storms of confusion and fleeting emotions from sweeping you out into a dark, freezing ocean of suffering. Amidst a world spinning so terrifyingly fast that we can control almost nothing, your breath is the only sacred territory in the entire universe over which you have absolute, sovereign control. All you have to do is allow yourself to feel it again. Chapter 3: The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. What if I told you there is a psychological shortcut, proven and tested over thousands of years, that allows you to walk straight through a storm of vicious insults, stand completely unfazed amidst 100 people screaming in your face, or face the absolute worst economic crisis of your entire life, without your heart rate increasing by a single beat. It sounds like a fictional superpower from a superhero movie, doesn't it? But this isn't magic. It isn't fantasy. This is the absolute, observable science of mind control. It is a reality that master practitioners can achieve, and a phenomenal power that you can attain as well. In the ancient records of the Buddhavacana, there is one story that is famous for its razor-sharp depth and urgency. It is the story of a wandering ascetic named Bahia. Bahia traveled a massive distance, in a frantic, desperate rush, just to meet the Buddha. When he finally arrived, he begged the Buddha to teach him the ultimate truth of the Dharma as quickly and concisely as possible. Bahia was acutely aware of the terrifying fragility of human life, and he knew he could not guarantee that death wouldn't knock on his door that very afternoon. The Buddha obliged, offering a teaching that consisted of only a few short sentences. Yet, the words held such immense, piercing energy that Bahia was able to instantly dissect his own defilements, sever the heavy chains of attachment, and liberate himself from all suffering in a fraction of a second. To bridge this profound ancient wisdom to the chaotic modern world, let's look at the story of Mark. Mark was a brilliant investor and a high-level corporate executive in London. He was a man who lived and breathed risk, high-stakes negotiations, and ruthless $100 million decisions. But when the tsunami of the latest global economic crisis hit, the empire he had built, with his bare hands, collapsed into dust in the blink of an eye. To make the nightmare worse, his closest, most trusted business partner stabbed him in the back, embezzling the last of the company's emergency funds and vanishing without a trace. Mark lost absolutely everything he had worked for in a matter of weeks. He was left to face incredibly complex lawsuits, daily, humiliating slander from the financial media, and eyes full of pure hatred from the people who had lost their life savings investing with him. Mark was in a state of absolute, apocalyptic ruin. He was literally losing his mind, unable to sleep for even a single consecutive hour. Every night at 3 a.m., he would jolt awake, drenched in a cold sweat, his thoughts spiraling toward ending his own life just to escape the crushing shame. Every time he accidentally caught a glimpse of the news, or simply pictured the smiling face of the friend who betrayed him, his rage, his thirst for vengeance, and his agonizing sense of injustice would push him past his physical limits. His body would ache as if he had been beaten. He would tense up completely, feeling as though someone were pouring battery acid directly onto his heart. In the fields of psychology and neuroscience, what Mark was experiencing is a critical, highly dangerous state known as an amygdala hijack. This occurs when the amygdala, the brain's primal command center for raw emotion, survival instincts, and fear, stages a violent coup. It completely seizes control away from the prefrontal cortex, which is the advanced area of the brain responsible for logic, self-awareness, and impulse control. When we are hit with an intense negative stimulus, our primal, ancient brain instantly interprets it as a lethal, physical threat. The body reacts with genuine, debilitating physical pain, even in the complete absence of external, bleeding wounds. But the most terrifying part of human consciousness is this: the more we ruminate, playing that painful, humiliating story on a constant loop in our heads, the more our brain fails to distinguish between an event that ended 6 months ago and an event that is happening right now. It commands the body to release toxic stress chemicals over and over and over again. Doing this is exactly like drinking a glass of deadly poison yourself and sitting there hoping the person you hate dies. In the end, you are the only one being endlessly, brutally tortured. So, what was the brief, piercing teaching the Buddha gave to Bahia to act as a permanent circuit breaker for this hellish loop? Looking at the desperate man, the Buddha calmly said, "Bahia, in the scene, there will be just the scene. In the herd, just the herd. In the sensed, just the sensed. In the cognized, just the cognized. To a modern ear, it sounds like almost nothing, doesn't it? But this is the ultimate secret code to the universe. It is the sharpest, most flawlessly effective protocol for extinguishing human problems. The practice of just knowing, or dithymatum. The profound, life-altering meaning behind this is that when a massive problem, a piece of chaos, or any aggressive stimulus crashes into your eyes, your ears, or disturbs your mind, your only job is to be the receiver. You create a tiny, microscopic space of silence between the stimulus and your response. And in that space, you strictly refrain from adding your ego into the mix to fabricate or write a dramatic Hollywood script. You refuse to let your brain drag you into thoughts like, "How dare they do this to me? Why is my life always cursed with such awful people?" Or "I am going to destroy them for what they did." Someone gossips about you behind your back. Let it be. Someone acts aggressively and rudely toward you. Let it be. If you zoom in and look deeply enough at the physics of the universe, those insults are simply invisible sound waves traveling through the air to vibrate your eardrums. That hateful text message is nothing more than pixels of light arranged on a glass computer monitor. When you choose to just know what is there, to observe it neutrally, and gently put it down, your ego, which is always eagerly waiting to jump in, take ownership, and passionately hug that suffering, evaporates into thin air. Without a heavy, rigid identity standing there to catch it, the suffering has nowhere to land. It falls right through you. And it can never hurt you again. Look closely at the world we live in today. We live in a society driven entirely by reactive madness. A society where people eagerly transform into venomous keyboard warriors, typing out curses and condemning complete strangers on the internet the very moment they see a provocative headline, without even clicking the link to read the actual context. We cower in fear and allow our emotional states to be remote-controlled by clickbait titles, or the vague, passive-aggressive status updates of people we hardly even know. We all act like self-appointed online vigilantes, constantly pointing our fingers to judge the lives, the wrongs, and the worth of others 24/7. We do this completely unaware that by carrying the fiery, toxic hatred of others and stuffing it tightly into our own chests, the only thing that burns to ash is our own peace of mind. This is the crucial moment for you to stand up, recalibrate your internal compass, and set an entirely new life goal. The Buddha warned us that the reason we endure such agonizing suffering and overwhelming world weariness is because we spend our entire, precious lives seeking and violently grasping at things that are biologically destined to age, get sick, die, and decay. Whether it's massive wealth, internet fame, or societal status, when these things naturally break down according to the unavoidable laws of nature, we, who tied our very identities to them, shatter and break down right alongside them. Your life protocol from this moment forward is this: step back and become a wise, untouchable observer, not a blind, frantic player on the board. Do your worldly duties. Earn your living, take excellent care of your family, and do your job as best you can, right livelihood, without carrying unnecessary, crushing stress. But deep down, in the silent, sacred place no one else can see, shift your ultimate goal. Seek the deathless, nirvana. Dedicate your energy to training your mind, slowly peeling away the heavy, suffocating layers of your ego, to finally liberate yourself from this endless cycle of meaningless chaos. Whenever a dark, negative thought, a spike of anger, or a wave of anxiety flares up in your head, draw the sharp sword of mindfulness called just knowing and slice it away without a second of hesitation. Acknowledge the heavy feeling of world weariness. Acknowledge the anxiety squeezing your heart, and then simply become the vast, open sky. Let those dark emotions drift by like grey storm clouds floating past. The sky never reaches out to grab the clouds and hold them back. Your pure, original mind has absolutely no need to grab hold of suffering, either. That intense, heavy feeling of being bored of the world that you are experiencing right now is not the end of your life. It is not a plague to be feared. It is the beginning of the most beautiful, profound, and liberating journey a human being can take. It is the cracking of the shell of your own ignorance, making way for the bird of wisdom to finally spread its wings and fly out into a vast world of absolute freedom. In this world, there is absolutely nothing that we can truly hold onto and permanently claim as our own. Everything comes to visit, and then, eventually, it leaves. Every sweet, intoxicating joy, and every bitter, agonizing sorrow, they are all just strangers passing through, resting in your house for a moment before moving on. I ask you to gently pull your wandering, exhausted mind back to the warm shelter of your own breath. Whatever massive problem crashes into your heart today, take a deep breath, smile softly to yourself, and say, "Let it be. It is only temporary." Gradually practice dropping the heavy thoughts that weigh down your heart, day by day, and you will discover the ultimate miracle for yourself, that amidst the fiercest, most terrifying storms of life, and in the dead center of a chaotic, distorted society, your mind can be a quiet, cool, incredibly powerful, and truly liberated island. If this episode helped create a space of peace and clarity in your heart today, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell so we can continue this journey together. And right now, I want you to explore your own mind for just a moment. In this very second, what heavy story, expectation, or burden in your life are you finally ready to just know and let go of? Share your answers with our community in the comments below. Until we meet again on our next journey, I wish you a day of profound, unshakable peace.